I know. Well, hopefully I didn't run that person off. Thank you for joining in here with us on Saturday night at 8 o'clock. I am your host, Day, and I have with me here Squire Godric Gray. Did I say that right?
Gray.
Gray.
Yep.
Haha. I have people say my name wrong all the time, and I fucked up. So, fair is fair. And we are here on Discord. Feel free to join in with us here on Discord live, or you can follow us along on Facebook. Let me get that pulled up here real quick now that that's going.
Say that right? Gray.
Gray. Haha. I have people. There you go. So now I can at least see the comments. Sorry. And go ahead and why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah. So, hey everybody, my name is Godric, and filling in tonight, Sir Anavrin was supposed to be on here, but he kind of had a family emergency today, and so he is not able to make it, so I'm stepping in for him. He is my knight, funnily enough. But I've been kind of just a quick rundown. I started playing in Amtgard in 2011. Played a little bit of other foam games before that, but nothing really like not an organized type of game. Just more, hitting friends in the backyard with after we made some sticks, watching videos on YouTube. Started playing in Central Indiana, and then I played down in Tennessee for a bit when I was in college, and then moved back to Indiana for a while, and then have been playing in the Grim Garrison in Kentucky, in Lexington, for the last 3 years or so now. I'm trying to think of anything. I am a Master Dragon for weaving mainly, winning tournaments, but on the back of making belts. So I am not a knight yet. So it is Saturday Night Live, but I am not currently a knight. I did get yes voted before COVID, so now we're just kind of waiting to see how everything pans out at this point.
Yes, we are still having our circle meetings as when we would in the event cycle. That's how things go. So thank you for that introduction. Now, you said you started in Central Indiana. Was that Black Marsh?
Yep.
That you started at?
Yep, started in the summer of 2011. Black Marsh had started, I want to say like January or February of 2011. And so I got in pretty early in Black Marsh and played there through the summers and on breaks when I was in college. But for my first probably 4 years of playing, I didn't have a park that was super close, and I went to the park down in Tennessee where I was in school, and I didn't really know anybody, and it was a stick jock park that was a knight, his squires, and their man at arms, and that was pretty much it. And that was the exact opposite of the Black Marsh at the time. Black Marsh was a quest park. Like, we did quests. We didn't really do battle games that often, but we did quests a bunch.
Mm-hmm.
And so me showing up with sword knights just didn't compute very well for me at the time. I had only, was super new, and they weren't as interested in new players because they were there to get better. They were training their squires and whatnot. And looking back on that, I can see that now. But I was playing in Black Marsh in the summers, and then when I graduated in 2014, well, I guess my wife graduated in 2015, and then we moved back to Indiana, and then I played at Black Marsh for a couple of years before I moved to Kentucky.
Okay. So playing in Tennessee, were you in Winter's Edge then? Mm-hmm. Or Freehold?
Yep. No, there were two Winter's Edge parks. They were, I want to say, probably 45 minutes to an hour in each direction from me. So neither of them were too close. And I had a couple of my roommates who we were playing on our college campus, where we would just, make the worst weapons we could find and hit each other out in the common area. And so we would show up at these parks and play. And we did that, I don't know, 4 or 5 times a year maybe, but nothing regular during the school year.
So you kind of explained, like, one was kind of like a training school, the other was kind of like a quest. How is Grim Garrison different than from the rest of your Amtgard experience?
So the Garrison is kind of unique. And so growing up, starting playing in Indianapolis area, there from where I started, within an hour's drive, I think we had like 7 parks at one point. Like I could hit a lot of different parks, and each of those parks were, I don't know, 10, 15, maybe 20 people. But you could hit a bunch of different parks. When I moved down to the Garrison, so Indianapolis kind of went wide. Every 30 minutes or so, there would be a new park and people would play locally. The Garrison has kind of opted in a different strategy. So instead of branching out wide, they have gone tall. And so they have one park that meets, and that's it at this point. But they meet 3 times a week. Well, all pre-COVID, obviously.
Mhm.
Met 3 times a week, and they meet on different sides of town for each practice, which was a really unique thing to do because Lexington's a fairly big city and you got college campuses and everything else. And so being in different locations around the city, but still being in the same park, the Garrison is much larger than any of the parks that I played at in Indianapolis. And that's led to a bunch of different interests because you have some guys who love the ditching. We do battle games multiple battle games a week, which isn't something I've ever really experienced. The only times we ever really did battle games were at events.
Mhm.
Garrison has multiple a week. And then you have, because there's so many people, Garrison, I want to say we were close to Dutchy numbers, if not above Dutchy numbers going into COVID. And so when you have that many people in a local area, you're going to be able to find and plug in and do whatever interests you have. And that was very different from the parks I played at in Indiana, where there were like 6 to 8 of us showing up on a weekly basis.
True. So definitely, you've had a wide range of experiences. What's kept you in Amtgard all this time?
So a couple of different things. One, the relationships are the friends that I've made through this game are lifelong friendships, and I love showing up, especially now that I'm in Kentucky. Getting to show up at events and hang out with my new friends in Kentucky, but then also my old friends from Indiana. And then it's been pretty fun to see my old friends become friends with my new friends, and like those crowds have mixed a little bit now. So the relationships are the probably the biggest part. And then the next biggest thing is I love to compete. I'm a hyper competitive person, and so whether it's one-on-one fighting tournaments or team, Bridge Wars is my favorite event of the year. I love Bridge Wars, but the ANS tournaments, I love competing in the ANS tournaments too. So Amtgard gives me the ability to like have stuff to do during the week to work on with my crafting stuff, and then it scratches that competitive itch too, to be able to show up and just say whatever we're doing on that day, to say that either I or my team was the best there that day. That's a lot of fun for me.
And then also like in another step of involvement, I guess more so recently since you moved back to Kentucky, you did also get into the vendoring side
Hmm.
of Amtgard. So where you kind
Yeah,
of are spread out in that area as well too. What was it like? What's it like being a vendor
yeah, for sure.
for Amtgard? Like different events and things like that.
So for me, I was trying to vend to pay for the hobby, I guess. And in particular, competing in high-end ANS tournaments can be expensive depending on what you're using. And so I started vending so I could pay for my tournaments because most of the tournaments, I think the cheapest tournament that I've won has probably been like 300 or 400 bucks maybe worth of materials and research and making something, messing up, and then starting over again. um, and so I started vending mainly to just pay for all of that stuff, and then that got me into vending. I have done it at DAG a few times. I've done it at a couple of other local cons and stuff like that too. um, and vending's fun because you make money on it, but it really stinks to sit there in a booth the whole weekend and like waste an entire event. So I don't do it as much anymore.
Mhm.
I'd rather you just custom order something and have me make it and mail it to you than sit at a booth in the cold in our March events. and then not get to play the battle games or not get to do, interact with my friends in the way that I wanted. So I still do sell a lot of stuff. It's just most of my stuff is online now instead of in person, like sitting a booth vending.
Gotcha. And that's definitely certainly a way to move. I know a lot of the
Like, it allowed me to pursue things and not have to worry about messing up. Like, if you're just like, for instance, if you're just getting into sewing and you've, done the Goodwill stuff, or you've got the cheapest cotton you can find at your local store and you're ready to make that jump to linen. But if you don't, like, it's scary when you're like, when you switch from a $2 a yard fabric to a $10 a yard fabric, like, oh man, I don't even want to touch it, And so being able to vend allowed me to take some leaps, I guess, that I wouldn't have been comfortable taking otherwise because I wouldn't want to mess it up.
And so you say you're vending to help fuel your competition. You're competing in the arts sciences. So you've won 3 Dragon Masters. And I know we were talking, you said 2 quals, and you've placed second at Keep. Have you competed also in Best of the Best?
Yep. Once I got a second place in Best of the Best.
And out of all of those pieces, which one do you think is your favorite? One that you love the most?
My favorite tournament or my favorite win?
Your favorite win, like with the piece included. Yeah.
Probably my first one, just because I didn't expect it. Like, the ladder stuff, when I go in currently, if I go to enter a tournament tomorrow, there's kind of an expectation in my mind of I'm gonna win this, and I know the skill sets, I know how I need to prep, I know how, like, it's a process that I've done a lot now, and so there's some expectations there in my head of what I need to do, and it's kind of business as usual, competing now. But that first one, I actually did. I didn't even get to go. I sent my items with somebody else from my park who was going to the tournament. And at the time, I had 3 dragons. I think was my highest award at the time. And sent some stuff in, and then wasn't even really paying attention. And then they tagged me on Facebook and said, Godric won. And I was like, wait, what? Like, I thought I didn't. What do you mean? How many people were there? Was it actually like a real thing? Like, did no one show up? And so the excitement of that first win lit a fire for me and kind of fueled everything else going forward.
Do you remember what pieces that you entered in that? Well, we'll go back to...
It was belts. A lot of it was woven. I just don't remember specific. Yeah, I don't remember specific pieces.
Well, especially if you believe in so many, I would imagine that it's hard to put it all together, because I know you've also made like some for gifts and then also for your fighting company.
Now, I do remember my first best in show that I got was my double Squire's belt. And so that one, it has 2 belts that start off separately, get woven into one, and then split back off again. That belt I actually didn't win that tournament, which I thought it's funny how some of those things work. So I got best in show, and it was, to this day, still my highest scoring item that I've ever had. It was on a 5-point scale, and it was a 4.95 out of 5. And so I remember that one. That first best in show was really memorable for me.
I think I remember that belt. But it was for the double Squire belt. Was it for 2 different paths?
No, it was a Squire belt, and then it was FC colors also.
Oh, okay. Yes. Yeah. And have you been with FC like the whole time that you've been in Amtgard, or when did you join up with this company?
Yeah, so
I see you repping their colors.
Yeah, my first company I was a, what's it called? I forget what their official term is. A pledge and initiate for the War Dancers for a summer. And then I kind of dropped that when I went to college. And then in between that, when I got back, I was in the Saracens for, I don't know, 6 months, maybe a year. And then from there, I've been in FC for 4 years now, 5, something like that. So, yeah, I've been in three different companies so far. But I guess FC is the only one I ever made it to like full membership status on. I bailed on the other two when I was still an initiate or whatever the respective
that's
term
what
is
that
there.
rank is really for, right? Anyways, when you're joining a fine company, is to see, if you really fit in. So you feel like FC, this is the company for you. You're gonna stick with them for a while.
Yeah, FC. When I started, like my first event, I'll brag on my company for a little bit. The first event I ever went to was 2012. It was Bridge Wars, and I remember showing up in my basketball shorts and my pillowcase tabard that I had just kind of thrown together. Never been to an event before. Never fought anybody on the field more than like 15 people. And I show up to Bridge Wars, and that was the year that FC had 2 or 3 teams. Saracens had 2 or 3 teams. Guard was there. Justicars were there. Daggers were there. I mean, like there were a dozen teams, and so I remember sitting on the sideline and watching FC just plow through everybody. And I'm like, all right, I'm gonna join them. And then as I learned more and more too, at the time when I joined FC had like, I don't know, 7 of 8 Serpent Knights in the kingdom or something, like active Serpent Knights. And that was big for me. I'm a big believer in, if surround yourself with people that are better than you, and that's how you get better, is the people that you surround yourself with.
Mm-hmm.
And so at the time, that's where the majority of the Serpent Knights were, and so that's where I wanted to be. And then got in. Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, but your knight isn't a Serpent Knight.
No, he's a Flame Knight. Yeah.
Is that another path you see for yourself in the future? No.
I have joked I play Amtgard and all the games, DAG and SCA and stuff. I play those because it's a stress reliever, and it is something that I do for fun on the side. And my career in the real world is Flame and Crown. Pretty much, that's the skill sets that are used the most, and I don't get enjoyment out of those things. Aren't stress relievers for me, if that makes sense. And so I did Crown this past reign, I was Regent, and I really honestly didn't like. I did not enjoy it. It was not fun. It wasn't. It caused me more stress than what it was worth. And so the ANS stuff, the fighting, Bridge Wars, that stuff is a blast for me, and it makes it takes stress away from me. It doesn't add more stress. And so I think Flame and Crown, personally for me, is not something I'm gonna push anymore.
I know you mentioned before about your cross gaming. You are a knight in Dagger here, correct?
Not yet.
You will.
So Anavrin is my knight, and he is a knight in Dagger here, and in Amtgard. And so his order, and I don't know for the viewers, the knighthood and Dagger here is completely different than us. We could have a whole show just comparing and contrasting the two there, and what is good about each and what is bad about each. But a short version of it is they have specific orders, and you get knighted into a specific order, and each order has their own criteria. And so it's not like Amtgard where all Flame Knights need to do A, B, C, or D. Some knighthoods in Dagger here are, very easy to get into. Other ones are incredibly hard and exclusive, and then there are a bunch of them in between. And each one can have its own entry requirements, if you will. And so there are a lot of FC players who are knights in both, who play both. And so in Dagger here, we have a sister company called the Dragoons. And so whenever we go to their game, we camp and fight with them. And whenever they come to our game, they camp and fight with us. And a lot of their knights are it's called the Knights of the Silver Order, is their order in Dagger here. And so they honor all Amtgard knightings that are like all of our FC guys who go and play over there. They honor that knighthood. And so whenever I get knighted in Amtgard, that knighthood will then transfer and be honored in the Knight of the Silver Order in Dagger here also.
I see. Okay. And that's about being a part of your company, or
Kinda. It's
the
so
or the knight family.
Yeah, there you go. Because Anavrin is not in FC anymore, but I am his squire, and so my squireship, if you want to call it that, is for both games. So I am a squire of his in Dagger here, and a squire of his in Amtgard.
Okay. And that's where you see that crossover, why it's not necessarily, as you described, you might have, if not a Navrin, gone for someone who had been of the Serpent Path for your knight.
Maybe. I don't know. There was something with Anavrin at the very beginning. He and I just clicked really well. And there aren't, I don't know. I'm kind of a self-learner. I love to go and learn new things. It's what I love about the ANS in our game. I have 50 halfway completed projects in here where I just will start something new, and then once I figure it out, I kind of put it aside and move on to the next thing. And so I don't think personally I needed a serpent knight to push me or teach me in that way, because I'm a hyper competitive person anyway, and I'm a self learner. I love learning new things, and so I didn't feel at least that I needed a serpent knight to be my knight. I just wanted somebody that I felt I could learn from, and someone who could help. I need someone who is willing to tell me to shut up when I'm being stupid, and he's willing to do that, And and then he and I just clicked from the beginning. So yeah, he's a flame knight. I don't think he'll ever be a serpent knight. I am a master dragon, and I don't think I'll ever be a flame knight. But it's kind of just it works.
So, what would you say is your current goal in Amtgard? You have achieved your Master Serpent. You have been voted by the Circle of Knights. What is kind of the next step for you that you see a goal?
I want to get all 3 ANS masterhoods. One of the other super influential knights in my life is Sir Declan. I kind of joke often that I have 2 knights. I've got a Nabrin and I have Declan. He has all 3. He has dragons, garbers, and owls, and he's the only person I know of that has done that. And so I want to be the second. I want all 3 eventually, and I think that's probably my personal goal right now. Is I want to get back to competing. I love that; it's my favorite aspect of the game, and so I'd like to push that. I really want. Our park was growing a lot. Like I said, we were almost at Dutchie numbers 2. So I'm gonna put, whenever we start back up again, I'm gonna put a lot more effort locally than I have been. So that's a goal also. And then one of the things that's really big for me is belted family legacy, and clicking on somebody and then seeing their belt line, and then I'll get lost for an hour just clicking the next step up on their belt line and reading about the history of all the people, and seeing how when I go and I look back at some of these people who have 14 generations of knights or something silly, that's a goal for me, is to be able to. It's important for me to be my best, but it's also equally as important for me to be able to help other people be their best. And so in our game, that the easiest way that comes through is the belted family. And so I want the guys that I pick up underneath me to be able to be excited and experience the.
So, what would you say of the 7 knightly virtues? Which one do you feel mostly represents you? Courage, justice, mercy, generosity, faith, nobility, or hope?
So I don't know. Actually, I haven't really thought of that too much. I would say probably. I want to say hope. I want to say but that's one of those, I think, you know how like when you take those personality tests, like you are
Can't make
answering
the
it yeah, you answer specifically for what you want, you know? So like I would say hope is probably the one that I want to exude the most. That's probably the one that I want people to look at me and say, yeah, that's it. Whether it's there or not is another question that's going to change based on each person you talk to.
Yeah.
But I would say that's probably the one that I would long for the most, I guess.
It's about passing the torch, which you said, helping other people be their best, hoping the best for people and things like that. That is, a representation of hope for sure.
Mm-hmm. I haven't really thought about those virtues like that, I guess.
Yeah. It can definitely be a hard one. I know for myself, like, I was like, this is what I thought. But then, like, after later, I realized it was more like something else, And you'd mentioned that Bridge Wars is your favorite event. And is that because of the competitive nature of the Bridge Wars?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of just being hyper competitive, and then that was my first event, and that's what really set the hook for me. Like before I got into any arts and science stuff, before I competed in anything, like going out and seeing Bridge Wars in like the massive scale that it was that year, and being just completely in awe of the fights. I had so much fun, and I didn't even pick up a stick for that event. And so that, and then in combination with the hyper competitiveness, and then too, it's really fun to fight with your friends, whether they're on your side or on the other side. Like this past year at Bridge Wars, in like the final match was with my knight and all of the guys who used to be in FC who are no longer in FC that had left and started another one. And a lot of people expected that to be like bitter and like angry. Like I was some of the most fun in Amtgard I've ever had. Like I loved it.
Playing with your friends, yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't matter if they're on my team or if they're on the other side. Like if we can have a competitive match, it's a lot of fun. And then being able to fight with your friends and be able to say that like my crew were the best on this day is a lot of fun for me.
What is the award that you've received that you would say is your favorite or most memorable?
So it's kind of silly, but I have one Order of the Jovius, and I think that is one of my like it's probably second only to my masterhood at this point. Like the masterhood is a recognition of like my personal skill, but in reality, my personal skill doesn't really make the game better. Jovius's do. Like if Jovius is recognizing making the game better. And so I have a lot of respect for the guys who have a bunch. Like Farley has like 6 or 7, I think, at this point. Like the guys who have a lot of the Joviuses make the game better for everybody. And so that's probably my favorite. That's the award that probably touched me the most, like the one that had the most impact on me, because it's like I like that one a lot.
Okay, and I think here we'll go ahead and, because we're at that halfway mark, open up the questions to the outside as well. Let me see if I can get the Facebook back up here so we can feed any of the questions in from there. But if you could drop them in on Daedera's classroom, if you have any questions, we are going to go ahead and open up questions to the floor. And aside from that, what you'd said before, like that you play other LARPs. What is for you? I guess keeps you around, like so invested in Amtgard as compared to the other LARPs and things like that you play.
Yeah. Each game has like unique things that I love about them, and each game has different strengths and weaknesses. And so one of the strengths of Amtgard, well, and I don't want to call it a strength. Amtgard is where most of my friends are. That is where I have the strongest relationships, and so that is a big part of it. But one of the things that I love the most about Amtgard is our ladder awards and that system. I know a lot of people think it's one of the most toxic parts of our game, but as again someone who's hyper competitive, that's one of the things that keeps drawing me back to it. I love competing and having a clearly defined system for how to compete is one of the things that Amtgard does really really well. Because like for instance, Dagger here they don't have really have any awards, and then their tournament scene is getting better, but they don't really have like I at Olympics a couple years back. I entered some stuff in their arts and science tournament, and I ended up winning that section of the arts and science tournament. And it didn't really feel like it didn't carry the same weight as an Amtgard tournament. Like it wasn't as many people, it wasn't as prestigious. There wasn't anybody there that was like I was gunning for or they were gunning for me, to like
Yeah,
to
it didn't
push
have that
forward. Yeah,
competitive edge that
yeah,
definitely is there because the artists go around and they're all eyeing everyone else's
oh
pieces.
yeah,
Like, who do
oh
you
yeah,
think made that? Like, it's really serious.
yeah. And so the competition part of DAG is one of its weaknesses compared to Amtgard. But there are other things that I love about DAG, and which is why I play that. And then I was just getting into SCA before COVID started, and so there are some other things I love about that too. But Amtgard's where my friends are, and I love our award system, and I love the competitive nature that comes with that.
Gotcha. What class do you prefer to play? There's a good question because we've
Yeah.
talked a lot about the outside of combat side of Amtgard, but what's your favorite class to play?
So my favorite is warrior. I have a lot of fun just putting on armor and going and hitting kids. What I'm trying to get better at now is healer. I feel like in our current situation in FC, that is the hole that needs filled, and so that's what I've been working on. And it is becoming more fun the better I get at it. Casting has never been anything. It's been one of my weakest points in on-field Amtgard for a long time. So it's one of the things I've put a lot of work into, and healer is becoming more fun. But I love putting on 6 points of armor and grabbing a war pole. It's a lot of fun.
Very cathartic, I'm sure.
Yep.
What do you think is the best way to separate masterhood and knighthood going forward in order to make them unique awards that are both important?
So, all right, soapbox here. If I had 100% control over the rule book, which will never happen, what I would do is I would make knighthood not require masterhood. So what I mean by that is I would make knighthood require like 2 8s and a 7, or some combination of still high level, so they still know what they're doing, but require a broader sense. So for instance, if I had 8 dragons, 8 roses, and 6 smiths, that could qualify you for knighthood. So that gets your knights broader, but then it also focuses more on the character of your knights and elevates the skill necessary for masterhood. Because if you do that, currently masterhood just kind of sits there. Like it is a stepping stone for what is going to happen later in knighthood. And once you get your masterhood, people are asking you, when are you going to get knighted? When are you going to get knighted? Like masterhood is not a cool thing in and of itself in our game.
Which it should be.
It should be. I think part of it is a cultural shift. In reality, when you get knighted, you get, if you're looking from the outside in and you see one ceremony, which is in front of court, is 30 minutes, and you get hundreds, maybe even thousands of dollars of gifts given to you. And you have this big giant ordeal afterwards. There's a big, vigil the night before. And then you have walking up, getting an award in court, and maybe getting a hood. You know what I mean? Like we definitely as a culture have put more emphasis on the knighthood. And I think for us to shift that, we need to put maybe not even necessarily lower the like the hoopla for knighthood, but raise the hoopla for masterhood.
Mm-hmm.
But I would love to bring the skill cap down for knights and focus more, have our knights be um, more about the quality of the individual and not necessarily the quality of skill, while still requiring them to have the knowledge to be able to do so. Like knights do need to know how to do stuff, or they need to know how to direct people to people who know what to do. So I don't like the idea of like, yeah, you're a knight because you're you're at third dragon, you're a knight now. I'm not a fan of that, but I do think we should lower it a little bit, if that makes sense.
Yes. Yeah. Ivanovich says there's a major hoopla imbalance.
There is, and until we fix it, masterhood will always be overlooked. And like we just recently, within the last like 2 years, started giving hoods out like consistently to all of our masters. Like masterhood is a huge deal. It is a pinnacle of your individual skill in this game in one area or another.
What
We should make it
about,
a bigger deal.
yeah, you could have maybe like how they have like premiere dinners, but have it for like a premiere dinner for masters.
Mm.
For people with masterhoods or something like that.
Yeah.
Something like a thank you for all
I
the
think
hard work.
my ideal would be make knighthood 8s, right? You need 2 8s to get knighthood, and it's more about character. And you celebrate that, and that is a big deal because you have the character of someone we want to be the face of our game and help promote the growth of the game.
Mm-hmm.
But then you have just as much hoopla when someone gets masterhood. Because if we theoretically, how many people would actually push for masterhood if they know they just need to get 8 to get knighthood? I feel like if you did that and then you put the as much hoopla behind the masterhood, because masterhoods would become more rare. I really think they would. I don't think people would be pushing for 9 and 10 and masterhood as much.
Mm-hmm.
And so when they happen, you make them a huge deal. I think
that'd be a big shift in culture.
Mm-hmm. And it's not going to happen, but that would be
your idea.
That's
your
my
ideal.
Yeah,
cool.
I think realistically, I think we need to we need to make a bigger deal about masterhoods, with the scrolls, with the hoods, with gifts, with like it is a big deal. So other than that, I'm not real sure. Right now it's a stepping stone, and I think it needs a rules of change or a rules of play change, or it will just continue to be a stepping stone that most people don't like. It matters, but not really.
Overslayer here is asking, do you see yourself being a sword knight someday?
No. I would love. Well, how about this? Under the current rule set, I will not be a sword knight. If they eventually add in, like, there's one of the proposals for paragons potentially. If they add in the battle master one, which fingers crossed, if you win 4 competitive tournaments on a kingdom level, that would qualify for you. I could do that one, but that one's because of the company I'm in more than my personal skill. But no, I don't think I'll be under the current rule set. I don't care enough, as in like I'm not willing to put in the 5 to 7 days a week hour training and traveling and all of that for it. It's fun for me, but I'm just not willing to put that amount of effort into it at this point.
Mm-hmm. From Chris Hammer on Facebook, when you began Amtgard, what was the most intimidating challenge that you have at this point overcome?
So when I first started, it was very difficult. I'm a fairly outgoing person, but it was difficult for me to walk up with no connections. like without a friend, without anybody to introduce me, like just walk straight up and say, hey, can you teach me? Like asking for help was really, really hard for me, especially if I didn't know anybody. Where now, when I go on vacation, I take my sticks with me and I go play at a local park. And it doesn't bother me to walk up and just say, hey, how's it going? You know, I'm here. And the that's actually some of the most fun that I've had is when you walk up and you just have a stick and a glove and a shield. And like, because I can't pack garb or I can't pack belts and you can't pack all of the status symbols that everyone recognizes, and you just show up and play. Like, that's a lot of fun when people don't know who you are and you can just play the game like a new player again. I love going on vacation and playing Amtgard in other parks. And the biggest thing that I've overcome with that is being able and willing to just walk up to people I don't know and go, hey, can I play with you? Because that was really hard for me when I started.
So I know we talked about knighthood here a little bit, a couple times. And where you feel like earning it. But do you feel it's more of an achievement or an office for knighthood?
I think it's both. I think it's achievement because it is really a lifetime award. Like we have instances where we strip belts, but those are pretty few and far between. So I do feel it is partly an award because it is something you're getting and it is something that you keep for the rest of your life, or as long as you're playing. But I do feel it is an office in the sense of when you have that belt on, you are willingly putting yourself in a role of people can come and ask you questions, whether that's a first-time newbie, whether that's someone who's trying to pursue your craft, or that's someone who's looking for advice or help for anything. I mean, it's when you put the belt on, it signifies almost like the same thing as putting a crown on for the king. Like it is a hey, come find me, I will help you with whatever it is that you need. And so in that sense it is an office, but I do think it is a like an accomplishment, an award too. A little bit of both.
And here we go. Further along onto this, and then I'll come back to Ivanovich's question. From Facebook, Sinakamoculus asks, do you feel it should be easier to remove belts from knights that are not fulfilling their duties?
Yes, I would prefer. So yes, but we need to have more specific outlines on what those duties are. Currently, our rules of play is pretty vague about what knights do. Our corpora is pretty vague about what knights do. I think we should be able to remove belts significantly easier than what we do. But until we actually have rules, not even rules, until we have standards that are clearly defined, knights are expected to do A, B, C, D. They're expected to show up A, B, C, D. Yada yada yada. Until we have those things clearly defined, it's going to be a very personal, like selective thing. And so if theoretically we take someone's belt because they're not active anymore, or they're not, well, what about all the other people who aren't active? If we take someone's belt because of the way they interact with somebody on Facebook, well, what about all the other people that are jerks on Facebook too? Like, because we don't have clearly defined expectations of what we want our knights to do and who we want our knights to be, it's real slippery slopey to be pulling them, except when we get like egregious major COC violations. Currently we have this culture of the only way you can really lose your belt is if you get COC'd for something. I don't think that's healthy. I think we should be able to pull belts easier than that. But we need a clearly defined list of why we're doing that. And currently the clearly defined list we have is the COC. So like,
yeah, don't break the COC.
Yeah, which shouldn't be our knights shouldn't even be getting close to the COC. Like, I hate that. Like, oh well, they haven't broken the law. Well, no joke. Like, you're the pinnacle of our game. Like, you're the people everyone's supposed to be looking up to. I would hope that you wouldn't like even be close to that. If you have a knight that is like 2 inches away from the line, we have an issue. Like,
I know we talked about your goals earlier, and so your goals would be like getting a master garber and getting a master owl. Ivanovich wants to know, how do spreadsheets fit into it?
So I am a very, like, when it comes to this type of stuff, a super organized person. And so when I know when a date of a tournament is, 3 months out, I start prepping and planning for what I want to do for that tournament. In Ivanovich has seen them, which is why he makes the comment and why I laugh. Like, I have like, here are the items that I am potentially thinking about making for this tournament. Here are the supplies I'll need. Here's how much money it's going to cost. Here's how much time I think it will cost. What am I going to work on this week? What am I going to work on next week? I go into full, like, spreadsheet mode to help plan to win a tournament, because that's what I'm doing. Like, when I enter ANS, I'm entering to win. And I have never been one who's like, oh, I kind of made this, let's enter this. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Like, I think it's great when people enter single items, or like, man, I guess I can make something cool. Let's do it. I'm just a hyper competitive person, so I'm going to take every advantage that I can, and my spreadsheets help plan my time leading up to a competition.
Mm-hmm. What projects are you working on for your owl path from Ogre Slayer?
Yeah, so I'm realistically, probably Plastidip. I have 6 owls currently, and most of those are for Plastidip, or for 6 or 7 for Plastidip or for armor. Plastidip is probably the one I'm going to pursue. But I also recently have been toying around with the idea of doing shoes, like boots. I want to do like Viking turn shoes, do some period type footwear. I think that could be cool. That's something else I haven't seen anyone in our kingdom get owls for. I'll probably do a combination of both of those. Plastidip, I'll just rant a little bit here. Plastidip is one of the things that got me into ANS before the belts, actually. We had, what was his name? We had a guy he was from Griffin's Perch. He played a Viking, and he plays DAG, and I'm pretty sure he does SCA too, and he was like super historical. I don't think he plays anymore. Like, he was hardcore into the period, making your stuff look like it really could have been real. And he showed up to our park one day at Black Marsh with a Plastidip shield, and it blew my mind, because everything I had seen up to that point was blue foam and like T-shirt ripped up, tied around it, like just basic.
Yeah,
I mean,
duct taped on the back of it.
Because at that point we had been apart for 6 months. You know what I mean? Like, think back to your first 6 months weapons, and that's the only thing I had seen. I hadn't been to an event. I hadn't, no one had really traveled. And this guy, Kyron,
he had an A-frame too, didn't he? Like,
yes, it's sick. I love it. And so, like, he showed up to park with a Plastidip shield, and that's what got me into arts and science. I saw that, and I instantly went home and tried to do it. And I got in that was probably my senior year of high school. I ended up getting DAP on my parents' countertops and ruined the countertop trying to, like, at 18 years old. I didn't know. I had never seen any of it before. He said, get Plastidip. And I'm like, okay, I got Plastidip. And he goes, get DAP. And so that I had to pay to get all that fixed, and that stunk. But so probably Plastidip.
Ivanovich has a good question here. From personally, how do you feel about the evolution of the Rising Winds classroom project? Is it something you'd like to see continue indefinitely, or did you envision it just as a plague rain stopgap?
So one of the things I was modeling it after, the SCA has it's called Mid-Realm University, and it is a continual thing that they do. And it's a really neat program where all the classes that you take give you credits, and they have different, like, degree levels. So you can get essentially an associate's, and then all the way up to a master's. And then they have teaching degrees as well. So you can, if you're get credit as a teacher. And it's something like credit hours. So, like, by the time you hit the highest one, you've taken like 40 hours worth of classes to get up there. And you have to fill out some stuff, and there's some stuff going on there to make it work. But I would love to see something like that in Amtgard, where we can go to keep and take 5 classes, and we fill out that, and it goes us to our orc or to something similar like the orc, and then that goes on to my my card, and then when I go to a kingdom event and I take a class, that adds up, and it gives some incentive for people to take classes, because that's, I think, one of the key parts that get people involved, is teaching classes. But then also, if I'm at an event and there's something I've never even heard of before, I'm probably going to go take that class just because I'm an inquisitive person. And then especially when you start throwing in different the period stuff and all of that. So I would love to see a consistent like university type of thing where your classes lead to something bigger, to give some incentive for taking classes. So we kind of started slow with the Rising Winds classroom. This was an idea that I had going into being a regent anyway, and then COVID hit, and so it kind of worked hand in hand to get the classes started.
Mm-hmm.
And down the road, I'd like to tackle that project and turn it into something consistent. If that makes sense, Eddie.
There, I'll get him to answer back here. He's a good answer, he said. So Declan asks on Facebook, do you think that Serpent Knights should treat tournaments like Sword Knights treat tournaments?
Yes, I do. That's another one of my things that I will never get past in the rule book. It will never, ever happen. But I would love to tie dragons, owls, and garbers to tournament wins. Again, it will never happen. Maybe not even tournament wins, but like high-level tournament performances or best in shows. I would like to see a I'd like to see a more competitive structure around our arts and science, because that is my particular bent of enjoyment in this game. But I know there are other people. One of my really good buddies, Lao Tzu, he hasn't entered a kingdom tournament and he got his masterhood. And I don't have any issue with his masterhood. You know what I mean? Like, I think he earned it, and it is the quality that is there to be like, I have no issue with that. But that being said, I would personally love it if to be a master ANS of anything, you have to have tournament wins, because that would force people to do tournaments, which is my ultimate goal. I want more people to compete against, and the more people I have competing against me, the more fun it is. So
You hear that, everyone? He wants you to come out for the Plague Reign. Are you going to be competing in the ANS tournaments here over the next 6 months that are going to be popping up?
I am. I'm already started on the next Dragon Master. I'm waiting for the rules to get posted before I can really start my spreadsheets up. But yeah, I've already started for the next one.
I have a question here. From Sensak Homoculus. I hear a lot of people say that they have had bad encounters when approaching knights, especially crafters with beginner questions, essentially being told, when you get better, then I will talk to you. Is this something that you have experienced in your path of the serpent?
A little, but not much. So, like I said earlier, I'm kind of a self learner, and so I only really ask people questions when I absolutely have to. Like, I YouTube stuff for hours before I go to somebody, except there are a couple of exceptions, but for the most part, I bug Declan all the time. But like, outside of that, if I'm going to someone with a question, it's because I can't figure it out myself. I do think, here, fun story. So I was out on a field one day at Black Marsh, and I saw Dead Soon walking around in a paracord belt. I had never seen a paracord belt before. It was maybe 2013 at this time. I asked him who made it. He pointed me to Thalion. I messaged Thalion. Dude had no clue who I was. Never talked to him. Never met him. Never anything. Spent, I don't know, 2 hours of me messaging him back and forth, sending me pictures of how to weave, taught me through Messenger how to make belts. And then I sent him pictures back. He gave me feedback, yada, yada, yada. So the first the first belt I ever made was being taught through Facebook Messenger to a guy who I had never met, who didn't know me from Adam. And that has been something that I have tried to do also. Like, I put out a bunch of videos on all the stuff that I learned how to do, and it's my favorite thing in the world when people will send me video or pictures of their belts that they've made and say, hey, look, I made this using your videos. I love that. I think it's great. But in particular with people like high-end people like snubbing, not really for me. Like, I didn't experience that too much, but it probably because I don't ask for help well. So like, I didn't go to high-end people most of the time. And most of the, I guess I'm kind of a little off because I was winning tournaments so early on, like low-level awards, that I felt like I didn't need the help, I guess, and that's arrogant, but like, I was winning, what do I need their help on? So
Yeah.
I'm probably not the best to ask for that because I don't ask for help and I was winning, so I didn't need the help.
Yeah, I know you mentioned you only had 3 when you won your first Kingdom Dragon Master.
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of skipped the whole local field and went straight into the Kingdom competitions. Are you seeing that's probably going to be the same kind of path for you? I know you're already kind of high in the Garbers and
I'm gonna
already.
I'm gonna go on a rant here a little bit. So I would highly recommend people not do what I did. I think entering kingdom level competitions at the time that I did set me back significantly. And it was something that gave me more heartache than it was worth. I had extreme frustrations when I was winning kingdom level tournaments and beating overall wins and best in shows. Like, I was producing better items. I remember there was one tournament in particular. I got a best in show high-end item. Second place in that tournament got a 9th. Third place got an 8th. Fourth place got an 8th. I won with best in show and got a 5th. That killed me. It utterly, it got to the point where there were times where I didn't know if I even wanted to like keep playing because I was so frustrated with that. What I would recommend for people, max out your local stuff, especially if you're like a Shire or a Barony. Get to 5 before you come to Kingdom. In general, I'll caveat this. Right now we're doing COVID stuff. Enter everything you want right now in COVID. It's a little different circumstances. But like, under normal circumstances, max out your local stuff, then go to your Grand Duchy, and then go to Kingdom. Because you get this idea of, some judges have the idea, and not judges, some people who hand out the awards have it that you need to progress every step of the way, right? So it doesn't matter if you come into the game already at masterhood quality. If you enter that at 5th level, your 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th have to be higher quality than what you had done previously. So if the first time people... I think it's silly. I think it's a terrible cultural thing that we have stuck with, and I do everything I can to. If you come in at a masterhood quality, just give them like, do the masterhood. Like, you shouldn't have to improve on masterhood quality. I think that's silly. But
it's also because then you have to. Otherwise, you're having to tell yourself to downplay your skills, make poor quality work, which to be able to enter and to go above.
I have had conversations with so many people where they're like, well, no, I'm saving that because I can't enter that yet because I have too low of awards right now. I don't want to waste it. And that's a legit thing, and it shouldn't be. Like, it shouldn't be. So my recommendation is get to like 5, 6, 7 before you enter Kingdom. If the first time Kingdom is seeing you is when you're at 7 and they can give you your 8th, that's going to be very different than the first time they're seeing you is at like 2, 3, 4. And you don't have to do that. Like, my belt line is not doing that, right? So it's not something that I'm like die hard on. Just my advice: max out your local stuff, learn from your local stuff, go to your Grand Duchy. We have Grand Duchies now, which I didn't have when I was coming up through the ladder awards. Like, use those tools and then get comfortable with tournament formats, get comfortable with your write-ups, get comfortable with how all of it works, and then go to Kingdom when you're at your like 6, 7, 8 even, and then win a tournament or 2, and then you're good. Like, it's super frustrating to to be performing better than. It's super frustrating when you're winning, thinking that you're better than people who are below you, even though you're getting lower awards than them. And that sucks. So save yourself some heartache and don't do that.
Yes. Good advice. We'll take a look around here real quick and see if there's any other questions.
So there was another. I didn't answer the full question there on the last one. I went on my rant.
You did go on a rant.
Yeah. There was an actual question in there, but I don't remember what it was.
I can't scroll back on the Facebook Live. There's been a discussion going on.
Oh, okay.
Unfortunately. But I think it was about, wasn't it? Oh, I was asking about whether or not you intended to perform, like if you're doing it at the higher levels. I think we were talking about the awards and about how, like, if you apply at the higher levels early on, that it can be a really frustrating and long, more tedious process.
Well, you were asking me if I'm going to go back to local.
Yeah, if you're going to go back to local.
Yeah. I'm going to do both because I'm sitting at like 6, I think, Garbers and 6 Owls at this point, so I can get local awards. So I'm going to be doing both. I'm going to enter into Kingdom and going to enter into our Grand Duchy stuff. But mainly because I'm trying to fast track it more than anything else. Like if I can bounce back and forth, there's just twice as many tournaments, twice the chance to win, twice the chance for awards. So I'm going to be doing both.
It is a good, for everyone who watches this, tunes in with us later, if you stay to the end, definitely take advantage of this opportunity to take part in the different A&S competitions going on, both your regional area and in the Kingdom level. I know Ivanovich said those rules are coming out tonight, so be looking forward for those, I'm sure. Then you can start working on your spreadsheets.
Yep, and come for me, guys. I'm entering. I want someone to try and beat me. I've goaded both of my man-at-arms to try and beat me. I'm trying to goad some of our old masters to come out. Like, I want people to actually compete in this stuff. It's no fun when I win and there's nobody there to beat. Like, so come try and beat me. Try.
Try again. Haha, there we go. Getting Pedigus some motivation here, saying he needs to finish some stuff. So thank you everyone for tuning in. Here we have Squire Godric with us. Unfortunately, Sir Navarre couldn't be with us. He had some family emergency that he had to take care of. You can catch us later on the Rising Winds Classrooms. Be sure if you were here to get your sign-ins. You can go to the winner forms and documents and scroll up and you'll find the Rising Winds Rain sign in, and then I will also be sure to share a link of that here with you guys on Facebook Live. So thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much, Godric, for stepping in tonight last minute. I appreciate that.
Yeah, it was a good time. Thanks for the questions, guys. I appreciate it. It was fun chatting with everybody.